Okay, I think we're ready to go.
Right. So the numbers are really going up, Sid. So I can see the numbers flaring up. So let's just get started and welcome you all to the webinar again. And with me, I have Sid Jhunjhunwala, and I'm sure most of you already know him. We've seen him speak at events. We've seen him be on the other side of the spectrum too. And today we're going to talk about how virtual trade shows is now the talk of town and how that is changing the landscape of events in general, not just, maybe going from physical events to virtual events, but how that's currently the paradigm shift. So now it's not just about COVID, but yes, that's shaping the future. So welcome, Sid, and thank you so much again for coming on the show and talking to us. Take it over, please.
No, thanks a lot, Aditi. And I'll lean on to, I think, just to set expectations, we are looking at about 30 minutes of the webinar, and then about 15 minutes after that for questions. What we've been seeing in the past is that questions start early, so we'll do that. Not a problem. We will, we will start with the questions as soon as they start coming in. But I think just to set the context, we've seen a huge influx of event planners and B2B companies who initially actually canceled their events or postponed them in April. And we've been in this industry for more than 7 years, being a favored choice for enterprise app for attendee engagement. And so initially in April, I think we were getting this constant thing that we are putting it back to September and pushing it to December. Some events were canceled. And I think it's in May, there is a distinct change where event planners or marketers are saying that, we don't know, I think most guesses around the COVID scenario is a person, it's a fantasy in a way. Different people have different thoughts. There is, of course, nobody knows. So I think with the event industry, when they don't have the events, they're realizing how important they are. I think the absence is really showing the importance of the events. And that's making everyone go virtual. A lot of the traditional event planners said you cannot do it virtually. You don't get that engagement virtually. And doing an virtual event almost every day now. So we know that it's different. It's like the difference between going out to eat in a restaurant and ordering from ordering online on your app. But I think both things get the job done. At the end, if you want to eat or feed yourself, both ways get the job done. It's different though. So it's different, but it gets the job done. Yeah.
Absolutely. Agreed. So Sid, before we go into other things, and while we're talking at it, you mentioned virtual events. Now, before we go into the exhibition part of it, let's talk about what virtual events actually are. How are they different from your average web conferences, maybe on a Zoom or a WebEx, How is it different?
Yeah, it's a good point. And let me pull up something. I'll skip all the sales deck because it's coming from the sales guys. But yeah, let me jump. This is an interesting slide, and I think very valuable for our attendees here is the fact that you see three kinds of online engagement now. Of course, you see video meetings. So even a Skype call is a video meeting. You have Google Meet and you have Zoom and so on and so forth. And then of course you have webinars which are focused on a topic for half an hour to one hour. So that's what we're doing right now. And then of course you have virtual events, which is more long-term and very distinctly different. And I'm trying to explain. Now one is of course, from the from the metrics or from the metadata perspective, the size of event. Webinars usually cap out at, the default packages cap out at 100. You don't see a lot of webinars going beyond 500. Video meetings are usually even smaller. You're looking at, 70 to 80 attendees at the most, usually about 20 attendees, because more than that in a video meeting, there's noise. There's hardly any value there. Virtual events, on the other hand, you're typically looking at thousands of attendees, either over an evening session or over 3 days, depending on the format of the event. So you're typically looking at that. So that's one, big difference. And I think the slide is right there. and I would encourage anybody to, poke me and ask me a specific question on that. But, from the purpose or objective perspective, Aditi, I think one of the core differences is that the event is a lead gen mechanism. At the same time, you discover new people. If you were discovering new people in a video meeting, you would be surprised, and you would
Absolutely.
probably raise that as a security hazard, right? That's not a good thing to have strangers on your video call.
Right. Absolutely. That's where
virtual
serendipity comes in. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you want that ability to meet new people, to discover new content, and to engage in an entirely different way. You also want it to be 24/7. That's really important to have these certain sessions. You don't have webinars or video calls that go 24/7. So virtual events give you that ability to create a long-lasting effect. Just the way you were doing events before, it gives you the platform for your customers to come in, to listen out to your CEO, listen out to your knowledge expert, but at the same time, it allows them to visit the booth. And that's what we're going to specially focus on in this webinar, in how to get your traditional booth, but back in a virtual scenario. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that, Sid. So that again brings me to another question, and I think this is a fitting time to ask you, how do these virtual booths look like? Now that we're talking about booths, how do they look like, and can they give the real customer, experience that you would have at an in-person exhibition? Would that be something similar, or how does it differ? I mean, are customers okay to adapt to that, change of, transforming the in-person experience to the web version of it? How does it work? And how do these booths look like?
Yeah, that's a great. So as you know, I know you've been very. I think all the attendees today are very familiar with how the exhibit floor works. Some of the largest trade shows, right from Chicago to Vegas, we know how they look, and I think some booths can even cost more than $1 million. All in, taking everything. So B2B planners, marketers, companies do spend a lot on booth design, and that's really key. And I think when they go to the online version and they suddenly see a flat listing, that's not going to help drive the form of engagement. So let me show you some examples. So this is an actual live example that we did, and we call it 2.5D. The reason is it's not 3D, but it's not 2D. And it gives you the sense of discovery. So while it looks 3D, it gives you the sense of discovery and makes you go and discover the right booth. If the event is if it's your private event where it's a large company which is hosting its own event, then of course your different booths could be your different service offerings. For example, if you might have something on product A and then something else might be on product B. So that's how you could have a pavilion. But if you're part of a consortium or part of a large event, then in that case, you would have a booth. And Aditi, the funny part is the one we are doing, there's one we are doing on 30th May. They're actually selling based on the size of the booth. So they, that booths cost a lot in terms of the size.
Absolutely.
And they're actually, the event managers for that, they actually have different pricing for the size of the booth. So that was pretty new, because of course in digital there's no limit, but they're creating an artificial boundary to signify the the value and the size of a booth. Yeah. Go on.
Right. So I think what would be, my question to you right now, Sid, would be, what's the best way to have these visitors get access to exhibit info? Because when you see, like you just rightly said, visitors flock to exhibitions and have different contexts, right? Some want to talk, some do not. Some want to download material, some want emails to themselves, and a lot of people want to be interactive with exhibitors,
right.
And some just want to pass through, just see, look at it, and pass through. So how do they, in your E2M on air, how do you think exhibitors would get access to exhibitor? Attendees would get, attendees or visitors for that matter, would get access to the exhibit info. How does it work?
Exactly. So that's a great point, and and I think, Aditi, before we jump onto that, let me show our guys, something that we are working for one of the recent clients, which is a large charity for the Breast Cancer Foundation. And this is actually the landing page. So it's not a website per se, it's like an app running on the web, and the same experience you get on the phone. So, when you come in, you have a counter that leads you, you have, and then the video, the sessions, the exhibitor, all it's like a theater for you. And
Right.
I mean, this is a very high profile event. I mean, you have people like Elton John and others performing, Elizabeth Hurley, they're all coming in. It's they actually usually are at the Met in New York. So, and still, even though it's going virtual, they have not seen a dip in the sponsorships. They raise millions of dollars. So this is something we're working on new. I just thought I'll share something different than an enterprise event. And then when you go to the video piece, this is how it evolves, which could both be live streaming as well as, pre-recorded. So there is a mix of pre-recorded, which behaves like a live stream. So something like your TV experience, right? What you see on the telly is not necessarily live all the time. And at the same time, you get your CEO, etc., performing live. Coming back to the booth collateral, it's a very good question, because I'm like an event junkie, in the sense that I think I've been exhibiting as an exhibitor for definitely more than 20 years.
Absolutely, and that's what made me ask you the question, Sid, because you've been at both ends. You've been a speaker as well as an exhibitor, and also I'm aware of your love for events. So you keep traveling to even be an attendee. So I think a lot of your experiences from your live events has come into the product, right?
Exactly. So I mean, anyone who's been in the trade show business understands the mechanics, and I've been on the both sides of the aisle, and also now as a vendor for event technology. What we see is that at the end of the day, no matter what you're trying to show, if you see the transaction that ends, it results in the person giving a business card, or these days, you're scanning your badge. So that's what the exhibitor gets. And what the attendee gets is probably a bunch of collateral, bunch of brochures. He gets, probably some swag. He gets a free t-shirt, and they decide to connect later. That's the general format of how a conversation in a trade show booth typically ends, in that particular session. Now, what we've seen is a very different mechanics going on. So as an example, when attendees go to like a small to medium-sized booth, they are generally not left alone. They approach a booth, and they suddenly have people, coming up to them and asking them if they can help in all good spirit, but it's sort of intimidating for the customer. The other side of the experience is when they go to a large exhibitor, people who spend upwards of $1 million on one trade show, they actually struggle to find someone to have a good conversation with. They usually have these champagne bars, which are, like private, and sometimes it's intimidating for a lot of these customers to visit. So what I'm trying to get is that the access to information, because as an attendee, some go for the swag, but most, I believe, are going to find new contacts, business contacts, the access to information is not very easy. So for them to go around and go through hundreds and thousands of booths, it takes time. Sometimes they fail it. So now with this, at one click, not only can they read, for example, from here, or watch videos, or, and send it to their email, but they can do it across the board. So it sort of democratizes the fact that what does a company do? They get it right away. But taking that one step forward is where they can actually get into a video call right away with the exhibit booth staff. And this is where we see our customers who, very few of them actually can have 24/7 in terms of manning it with the physical video call, but usually they would advertise as, okay, we're available from say 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and visitors during that hour can actually enter into a video call with, one of the exhibit staff. So it sort of completes, I just want to take you back to my original point that when you take Netflix versus going to your local cinema or ordering in versus going to a restaurant,
Mm-hmm.
you know, in both cases, your end objective is largely fulfilled, but through a different way. And here, you know, your objectives are more than getting fulfilled in a very constructive way. So yeah, this is how the engagement works in terms of attendee experience.
Right. So you mentioned something, Sid. You mentioned that when they can book a time, right? They can request a callback. So I think that's a perfect situation when the exhibitor staff are not available, right?
Yeah, yeah. So that's a common situation we face, because let's say even if you have 5, 6, 7, 10 people
Right.
manning your virtual booth,
Mm-hmm.
what you typically land up is that, like for now, you know, you might have more than 100 visitors at one point, which
Mm-hmm.
is very common if your president or the CEO of your company is, for example, keynoting, or
Mm-hmm.
he's doing a panel session,
Mm-hmm.
then you would suddenly notice that you have hundreds of people, and all of them, if they are requesting for a video call, you just don't have the staff to do it. So what
Sure.
you want is not just exchange a business card, but what you want to do is actually set up a time in the near future, where you can get on a meeting, but at the same time, it should link to your calendar. So it should link to the calendar of the exhibitor, the sales guy, and also it
Okay.
should link to your own calendar. So this is an example uh, which pops up on the exhibitor. So if you're not getting a video slot and they're all busy, then you can actually select the time that they're free in the near future or even later in the day, and they would call you back. So I think the big difference is that as an exhibitor,
Mm-hmm.
you know, instead of saying that I got so many leads, now you're saying that I got so many meetings, which is a big step up in terms of
Absolutely.
validating ROI. Yeah.
Absolutely, agreed, Sid. And I think that's a fabulous way to even, retain your leads, because I'm sure when exhibitors have this concept that they miss out on leads, good leads slip through. So I think this is a
Exactly.
great way to, have people on board and, make sure that they are being followed up, because you said that there's a calendar sync. So that's a great way to even sync back. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, Sid, I have another question for you. I think that's probably what you're going to show us next. Can you share what could be a typical agenda for a virtual event? Can you talk about that, please?
Yeah, let me show that. Now, this is actually almost an exact format. We've changed the data a bit. So this is how, let's say, so the one thing to understand is that your virtual event, can actually run across the whole month or the whole year. You know,
Right.
however, on certain days, you would have your own staff or your guest speakers speaking into your, sessions. So if you
Right.
look at the screen, this you'll see that the ones that which go with live are actually the ones where you're giving a live broadcast, something similar to the webinar, but the difference is you could have thousands of people listening in at the same time engaging with that. The ones that you see with those circular ones are actually pre-recorded, but TV style. So they would actually be generally they are not corporate videos, but more pre-recorded sessions, because if you're running your virtual event across the year, you're going to collect all these videos that you've done before. So the good thing is that the moment you deliver a session, it automatically gets recorded and stored in the cloud to be reused later and to be played later. So all of the live ones automatically convert to pre-recorded sessions. And then what you see here is that, if you see till noon, you're having common sessions, and then you break out into 3 tracks. We have some customers who break out into up to 9 tracks, and something like, some of the big expos can have hundreds, like something like a Dreamforce. I don't even know how many tracks they have, but that's like many events in one event. And what you see here is that they also have something known as roundtables. And what a roundtable is, the roundtables are essentially a blend where you as an attendee, you get to talk on a subject with the host of the table. Usually we encourage no more than 10 people in a roundtable, because then again, you don't get a chance to speak. But you could go into a roundtable and host that. So let's say if you are in the, if you're in an industry which let's say, if you're in the power sector, then you could be, say, discussing about, I don't know, pole line hardware, for example. Or if you're in the telecom industry, you could be having different groups on, say, 5G, around those topics. If you're in the digital marketing, you could be discussing about, say, TikTok ads versus Facebook ads. So people can then group and go into different roundtables. So this is a good, and actually this is exactly for some of the live events that we did. And along with the exhibit hall open, they are actually, again, the same thing. You jump to the main menu and then you go through that whole exhibit hall experience that you get. Hope that helps. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Sid. That does help. And I can see a lot of questions coming in, Sid. I see a lot of questions coming in. Would you like to take some questions now?
Yes.
And
how are we doing with time? We want to be respectful. Okay.
I think we are 10 minutes to 9. So
10
I think we have 10 minutes. Yeah,
okay.
10 to 15. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, go on. Yeah, let's do the questions. That's good.
Right. So I think one of the questions which came in is we have exhibitors asking, what are we as meeting planner going to do to guarantee, what are we going to do to guarantee attendees will visit their virtual booth? As a first-time meeting planner for virtual conferences, how am I supposed to answer that question?
Right. Great question. Whoever's asked that question, I love that question because it actually helps my pitch. So I'll just skip forward a bit and then we'll come back to, let me go back here. We'll just skip forward a bit. That's a great question. And I think that's more to do with promoting. I guess the larger question is, how do we get more people coming over? How do we get more? So one, of course, you have your captive audience, right? So, you have your existing customers, prospects, etc. You do that. We do have an optional plugin, which is an AI-based system called Zoe. And this was actually being used extensively. And what this does is that it actually adopts a cadence marketing platform to drive in new leads. So now what happens, very typical that, especially in the B2B place, Aditi, you never really you don't call or email and instantly you get a response that, hey, I want to place an order, I want to meet, no matter who you are. It takes a process of cultivating the lead process, because many times the leads are genuinely busy or genuinely unavailable for a whole host of reasons, not because they're not interested in your product, but just because what they do is keeping them busy. So what we've done is that we actually federate databases, relevant, permission-oriented databases. Now, again, if you're targeting Europe, then it's slightly more complicated there because of GDPR. But in most parts in Asia and the United States, we can have databases which are pre-opt-in, and then they run through this funnel of cadence. So what you see here is that, an email, for example, goes to them on day 1. On day 3, you get email 2. And then on the next week, your sales guy actually gets a ping to call that person.
Right.
In a non-post-COVID scenario, you could even send them a handwritten note or a gift, what you see here in Cadence 4. And you'll be surprised that most responses, actually, we have a chart which shows that, over 80% of the responses actually come in the Cadence 3 to the Cadence 6. And that's one good way of generating. Of course, this is not the only way you would drive traffic. At the moment, since everybody's at home, globally, everybody's at home, their digital usage has spiked from an average of 4 hours a day to 4 hours a day to 7 to 8 hours a day. Advertising on platforms like Google and Facebook are very effective, or LinkedIn, based on who you're trying to target. So I think a combination of direct marketing and advertising gets, and we are getting it. We benefit. We've seen our clients getting it, even if you're a B2B. So this would be a good option to choose. Yeah.
Sure. Thanks for answering that, Sid. I have another question coming up from David. How does it work if 10 attendees are trying to video call the exhibitor at the same time? Yeah. Is there a way to schedule how the sponsor booth exhibitor engage with the attendee? How does that work?
Yeah. So what happens is that when the exhibitor signs in, they each rep from the exhibitor signs in individually, right? So most often it's a round robin system. So if you're trying to speak to somebody, it will go from one person to another who are logged in. Now, if nobody is available or they do not respond back, which is very common, as I said, we have some exhibitors who who get hundreds of requests sometimes at the same moment. So this is where you would use this scheduling capability to make sure that you put you ask them to call you back, which is on their calendar.
Right. I think David also has a follow-up question to it. He says, how does it look for the exhibitor when they get a chat or a video request from multiple people? And how do they manage ongoing communications through the day? If it's pushed to a future date or time, would they lose momentum with the attendee?
Yeah,
I think that's a very good question.
Yeah, that's a great question, David. So let me actually jump, and actually you're making my life easier. Yeah. So this is how it would look like. So the thing is that this is not just the real scenario is that, in a regular event, I think everybody is right there. They are sharp. They've had the breakfast. They are at the show. But in the virtual event, you're probably going to have somebody taking care of breakfast and somebody going to be, in his pajamas, etc. Right? So you're going to have a scenario where an attendee wants to talk, but you're watching a Netflix movie or having lunch, depending on time of the day. So there is the app component, So your staff actually has the app where it notifies you that, request to talk. You have the option of seeing the profile of the attendee. So the fact is that if you're getting hundreds of requests on a specific hour, you may want to prioritize whom you want to speak to. So because everyone is registered, as an exhibitor, you can actually see who's trying to speak to you. And then you could decide to either reschedule or cancel that request. So yeah, this would work with your mobile thing. And if you're on your desktop, then anyways, you would get the notification on your browser. But if you're not on your desktop, then you would get the notification on your phone.
Thanks, Sid. So David has a follow-up question again. What if the attendees walk by the booth and don't chat and engage with the exhibitor? Would those attendees be tracked as passing by and then those names be sent to the exhibitor to follow up with?
So let me answer that in two parts. Now, what we want to also do is be respectful of the time and the privacy of the attendees. So to answer straight, if it's your private event, right? If you own the entire event, so you own the booth, you are doing the sessions, you are the owner of the virtual event asset, then yes, you will get that stat. However, if you are part of an event, like if somebody's hosted the event and you've just paid to be there, then you don't get that data, because if an attendee does not want to talk to you, he just wants to see, you will get the data that somebody saw. And this is the demographic. But unless the event planner allows, and most event planners do not allow, in fact, some of them sell that as well. But that's a tricky part. And what we recommend is that unless you own the whole event, event planners should not allow that who checked the profile. It's like the equivalent of, if you know who all checked your Facebook profile, it would be very spooky. Because if you knew who was checking your Facebook profile or Instagram profile, it would really upset the whole social connection. The same thing happens in the business scenario. Just say the MD of a potential large Fortune 500 company or the CEO, if he happens to just see your brochures, and then the moment he logs out, he starts getting spammed by that vendor with phone calls and emails that, hey, you looked at our brochure. Can I meet you? Can I talk to you? And then what happens is that guy will not look at any other brochure again. He will be very scared because he knows the moment I go to an exhibitor, they are going to spam me. So for the health of the event, we advise that you don't get data which is not accepted by the attendee.
Right. Thanks, Sid. Thanks for that. David, I think Sid has answered your questions. If there are any further questions to it, please feel free to get back to us and we'll take it up privately. Now, I think, Sid, there's another question coming in from Liz, and the question is, can more than one visitor visit the same booth and view the materials?
Oh yeah, unlimited. I mean, the best part is that this is entirely on the cloud and made what we call in the way it's planet scale. So So you can I mean, this is literally unlimited.
Right.
I mean, practically unlimited, but yeah, it auto scales. It's just that we get a bigger bill. If you get 1 million visitors, then we're going to get a bigger bill, but the server won't crash for sure. So we are very popular. We are known for making, planet scale software. They don't go down, they don't crash. And it's structured that way. Yeah.
Right. I think there's another question coming in. How long does it take to build a 3D exhibit flow, and how does the pricing work? And how do the attendees walk the flow? That's the question.
Exactly. So the way it works is that typically SaaS subscription model, right? So what you would do is there is a kind of setup fee, and based on your expected attendee volume, you actually get a monthly charge for your property that includes support and everything. So what we do after this event is that you'll get an automatic email where you can schedule a time to speak to us, and we will we will be able to do a discovery session and give you a proposal within 24 hours. On the question of, sorry, what was the first question?
The first question was how does the pricing work, and how the attendees can walk the flow? Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are 3 parts to it. The first one was how long does it take to build the flow in the first place, and how does the pricing work, and how do the attendees really walk the flow?
So what we've seen are typical, just to give you a sense, like this specific event, I mean, we're looking at 3 weeks lead time. But what we recommend is you have up to 4 weeks lead time, because your event can be ready, but what you need is definitely you need content, because if you have an event booth, you need to be prepared to have content, right? Mm-hmm. So you need time to prepare content. At the same time, your management may not be used to a scenario where many of them actually not used to speaking at all. They are not used to going and keynoting or speaking in a panel. So by asking your leaders, your management leaders to come in and speak, you need to prep them. They need to get their act together, all of those things. So we find that for 3 to 4 weeks, I would personally recommend 4 weeks as a minimum to get everything. And then marketing, that one question where how do we get more people coming in?
Right. That's a common question, Sid. Yeah. There's a lot of people.
One good thing about Aditi, about this virtual event is that it gives you a focus for digital marketing, because now since everybody is at home, and even it's expected that for the rest of the year they are looking at 33% or 1/3 attendance in offices. You're not going to, if somebody says I want to come and meet you, it'll be like, why do you want to meet me? It's repulsive. It would not repulsive. I think that's a strong word, but I think people will not encourage business meetings face to face.
Absolutely.
So in that situation, you have to make sure that, all the communication that you send out, instead of just saying that, hey, I am XYZ and I sell this and please buy from me, you need to say that this is, we are speaking on this. You need to lead content, drive your marketing.
Right.
And no better way than having your own event, virtual event site doing that for you.
Great, Sid. I think that's very, very informative. And I think that's answered a lot of people's questions, because I think most commonly asked question today was how to get in more customers, how to get in more leads, and how do we respond to them, through the exhibitor model. Right. I think there's another one coming up. Hi, I think that's from Ajay. So is the company planning to organize industry-specific events? Where do you have many exhibitors who are in a way competitors who can pitch to a select audience? So I think this is a very unique question. So I'll repeat this for you.
Yeah.
So Ajay wants to know is there company planning to organize industry-specific events? Where do you have exhibitors who are in a way competitors with, so it's like a event where you have a lot of competitors side by side. Right. So how do you pitch to a select audience in that scenario?
Right. So again, we of course what we do is we work with those event planners who engage us, who buy the platform for us and our services to implement the virtual event. But one very interesting thing on our product roadmap, which we're actually launching later in May and early June, is almost like the equivalent of like a speed dating kind of a situation, right? Where what we call hosted buyer meet. So what you do is that the beauty of that is that you, as a vendor, you buy into, say, 10 meetings. And those meetings will be clocked at, say, 3 minutes each. But then those videos come automatically, right? So you don't know who's coming in. You're mapped based on your target focus. So you could say that, hey, I want to speak to companies who are in this sector and with so and so kind of revenues and so many employees. And the system would automatically match you and say if you've paid for 10 meetings, right? This happens in events all the time. I mean, some people call it reverse buyer seller meet, and some people call it hosted buyer meet. I mean, globally the definitions change, but essentially is vendors paying to get guaranteed meetings. And what we've done with this is that we're actually doing where you sit and you'll suddenly see someone pop in. You have a conversation, you'll get their profile, and then they go away, and then somebody else comes in. And that's really cool. And that was really driven by customer demand. So that is something we are rolling out. But yeah, I mean, a lot of our customers are event planners, and when they engage us, we license our platform to them.
Okay, I think Gurpreet, that's answered your question as well. Thanks, Sid, for that. I think that's answered Gurpreet's question too.
Yeah.
I think Sid, we're running out of time, so I would just try to squeeze in another question maybe. And the remaining questions we can take offline as well. So the last one for you would be, Sid, any tips on how to handle big companies with big existing spends when you pivot from a face-to-face event to a virtual one? Because I think Fred is asking this question, and it's a tough thing because booth customer that has several additional sponsorships in the online and virtual environment. How does it happen? How does the paradigm shift happen from existing big spending companies shifting from the in-person events to virtual one? What would be your tips on that?
See, right now for the next 6 months, they have no option. Let's take it that way. I think let's get the elephant. Talk about the elephant in the room. The fact is that a lot of the event planners, of course, they were invested in the physical events. It's a big industry. In fact, just to give you a sense, it's over $650 billion annually, which is the same amount that advertisers spend globally, including ads on paper, newspapers, hoardings, as well as digital. So the event industry is as large as that. It's probably the largest industry you've never heard of.
Absolutely,
it's a very large industry. Now the question is, how do you move them? Honestly, as I said, till April, we were actually seeing people who were trying to postpone. Now with the uncertainties right now, what they're saying is that, we cannot postpone it any longer. What we're trying to see, what we're seeing is that, say this time next year, right? People will be so used to it that you'll be looking at hybrid events. Already if you go to any event, you can rarely get anyone who's not looking at their phone, for example, right? Now, next time when they are at a physical event and they're looking at the phone, they would say, why can't I fix a meeting with that guy right now? Why can't I see that session which is going in hall B? I'm in hall A, but I don't have time to go to hall B. I want to have a coffee sitting here, but I still want to watch that session. So we've seen that happening over and over again, where digital initially comes with a lot of skepticism, and eventually it replaces and changes the habit. And I think the moment you start changing habits, that's what we call digital transformation, right? It changes, it gets away from your past and you adopt new habits. I mean, 10 years ago, if I said people would spend more time watching movies on their laptops or desktops, you would not agree. And today, it's a history, what's happened with that. So it's already there. I think in the next 6 months, there are no options available because there are very few events. In fact, most large vendors, even in the tech space, from Microsoft to Facebook, Amazon, they've all canceled their events till June 2021. And
Sid, that's a very important point that you've raised. And I think we have a question coming in, which is, do you think live expos will happen in 2021? So you've just answered that.
Yeah, they've already been postponed till June. So the large companies who do, tons of events, they've already said we are not going to do any more physical events till June 2021. Most workplaces in California, for example, are, especially the big names, they've already said we are not going to force employees to come back before October.
Yeah.
So, my guess is as good as yours. There is, we are all educated by the media, unfortunately, I think.
Yeah,
But,
absolutely.
yeah.
Thanks, Sid. I think we've covered most of it, and we've managed to answer them all. And the remaining ones we will take offline for sure because we are pressed for time. Um, so, is there anything, Sid, that you'd like to give us in terms of insights, maybe while just as a parting note?
I think, you see, what's insight in the sense that, as a long time event attendee, exhibitor, vendor, etc., I think the absence of events is actually showing how important it was in our lives, especially for the B2B space, especially for the G2C space, the government outreach. It's actually shown the fact that, we have more than 100 people in a webinar when our normally people, we have about 25, 30 people.
Yeah.
Is that, the absence of events is showing, and this is the only way to drive in energy in a focused way. One of the biggest things that event does is that creates some focus in the company, drives the energy in a focused manner. So I think my only advice would be that if you are still looking for events to open up before you start doing your events again, and they could be employee events, they could be, for example, for a large telco in UK, it was a 3,000 employee, sales enablement event. So no matter what kind of event or training you're doing, I think postponing is probably not the best strategy because there's a lot of uncertainty what will happen, say, post-September, October. And, like how webinars have really mushroomed, like how video calling, you never even went to the other room to speak to your family folks, and now you're video calling like there's no tomorrow. So if you get on the wagon quicker, I think there's a chance you'll get the attention of your customers faster.
Absolutely, Sid. Agreed. And I think this has been a fabulous webinar so far because the fact that just rightly put it by you that we have 100 plus attendees, still on the session, and people interestingly asking you questions about the demo, about the booth, and how to bring on the customers on board. I think it's a great way to share industry news, great way to collaborate. So I would thank you for having time with us today, and thank you for coming on board and sharing your 2 bits about it. And I'm thanking all the attendees who've attended today to, thanks for sparing time in such testing times and being a part of the webinar. We hope to see you again and at the next one. And for those who we couldn't answer, we will get back to you in person post the webinar and take it up for a personal session. Thank you so much, and have a good day, Sid. Have a good day, all of you, and stay safe until we meet again. Thank you. Bye-bye.